We're live, baby.
Let's go.
All
Different
right.
rooms this time. Different rooms.
Yeah, we're not doing this together this time.
I know.
But, the difference this time is we have a little bit more of a plan, a little bit more prepared. Post this link to Twitter, get the stream going, and we'll be, ready to go, baby.
Oh, yeah.
How you doing today, Joe? Let's hear it for the people.
Doing great. So spent the first 2 hours of my day on Whatnot, selling football cards and stuff. And then I spent about 2 or 3 hours doing what we'll talk about at the end of the stream. My fantasy football chart. It's my number 101 is going to surprise everyone, but it's entertaining. I want to be held accountable for where I think players are going to fall this year.
Listen, I think there's a lot of interesting things with fantasy football, especially this time of year. Especially now, we play in a league, not a fantasy league, an actual league where there's only 3 preseason games, and some of the biggest stars don't play in any preseason games.
No,
and it makes things a little more difficult with choosing what players you're going to pick because you don't get to see anything. But it also makes it maybe a little bit easier with injuries because the injuries still happen, but the injuries happen in training camp now. You don't have to worry about those injuries as much.
Well, this is where it's going to get crazy, man. It's and a lot of those first round draft picks they've been there for a while, but you don't know where they're going to kind of fit in with the superstars that haven't really shown up to OTAs yet.
I could not agree more. All right, so posted to Twitter. All right, let's start this up.
Here we go.
So, welcome back. A new episode, The Oddsfathers. We're doing a live stream twice a week. That's going to be our plan. I'll still be posting the everyday picks. Joe's still going to be posting his, everyday. Well, maybe not every day, but Joe will still be posting a lot of shorts, telling you about spur of the moment things. Joe does another thing on the side. He does another podcast that he has an @ right there. It's called Island Breaks. He has an Instagram for it. He has a Twitter for it. And Joe, why don't you go ahead? I know we've explained it to everybody once before, but I would love to hear another little synopsis of it once again for everybody. So if they're not 100% familiar with you, they can get to know you a little better.
So like everyone, I collected Pokemon sports cards when I was a kid. I took a 10, 15-year hiatus, and right before the pandemic, I kind of got back into it. It's really cool. They've completely changed what sports cards look like now. There's different numbers and parallels and inserts of, everyone's favorite player. But what a lot of people end up doing is, I do gamble too. I buy players when they're injured. I buy players when they're rookies, and I hope that they eventually become all pros, pro bowlers, and hopefully Hall of Famers. It's a nice little business and side hustle that I have, and it's a lot of fun. You kind of, instead of, if you think, we talked about it the other stream, you think the Jets win total is going to hit at that 5.5, dude, why not invest in Zach Wilson, Elijah Moore? Will Michael Carter be completely gone? You can get a Michael Carter card for $1. So if he, becomes something, dude, you make your money. You double, triple, quadruple your money that you invested.
Hey, I was going to say, it's almost like looking at it as essentially like a stock market, but for athletes, trading cards, things like that. And it's obviously blown up over time. We spoke about it. I did that stream one time. We did it together last summer with the
on Instagram,
card that I pulled in the vintage Pokemon pack. But it's just, that's the generation we're in. It's a social media generation. It's people are back to collecting again. So I would say, first off, to plug, go follow at Island Break. Because they always have giveaways going on, and they're always having slots open for different breaks, posting stuff about cards. You can learn a lot about the industry, but there's a lot of money to be made. It's basically investing on your athletes, which is essentially like putting in a futures bet with what we do here with betting. If I didn't sum that, I don't know if I summed that up well enough, but it's almost like doing the future.
It's perfect. Listen, a lot of people, they don't know what to do with their money and they throw it in the stock market. Well, this is just, a small group of people that, well, if they have some money invested in the stock market, they probably have a little cash on the side. Like I said, they buy, I don't know, I got a whole bunch of stuff next to me. I got, Herbert, Burrow. Yeah, Well, my whole whatnot stream is just
Guy's
sitting.
got 40 Justin Herberts. Like, if this guy becomes what you think he's
Yeah,
going to become, that's the reason why it's worth investing, because the cards are not expensive when the players are young. And especially with all the different things you could pull,
oh yeah,
prism this, signature that, jersey card this, game worn that. It's fucking nuts.
oh, it's crazy. But like, dude, even like I can also now buy like Hall of Fame players and my favorite athletes if I sell a whole bunch of cards. Like I bought the gunslinger himself, the guy that made me fall in love with football, like Brett Favre. I bought a Brett Favre rookie card, and dude, that's a card, and that's something that I wanted for years. But as a kid, you don't actually get it. Well, I have adult money now, so I'm gonna buy that goddamn card that I couldn't
Adult
afford.
money, child things.
Yeah,
But hey,
exactly, dude.
right?
I'm grown adult boy.
Right. All right. Well, listen, we're going to talk a bunch about, fantasy football. We want to get into it. The way too early fantasy football. And the reason why we do that is because, there's a lot of stuff, going on different times of year. The beginning of the summer, you're still waiting on the NHL playoffs, the NBA playoffs to end. NBA free agency offseason has been crazy. Now we're at the All-Star break. So everyone was talking about baseball. There's just so much other things going on. But football I know baseball is America's pastime. And if you think I'm wrong and argue with me, say something in the chat. There's a reason why they call baseball, and I'm a diehard Yankees fan. I'm wearing the Yankee hat. I watch as many games as I can. There's a reason why they call it America's pastime, because 150 years ago, baseball was the most exciting sport, but it's not anymore. And the most exciting sport is football. So exciting that they had to add an extra game to it, and that's why there's 17 regular season games now. So a lot of people will jump into it a week before. Oh shit, my fantasy draft is coming up a week from now. So that's why I'm going to start to do mock drafts and start to listen to people. And I feel like there's vested interests. I feel like when you listen to people on ESPN, on Yahoo Sports, things like that, they tell you things that they have a vested interest in. And if they say one thing, they have to die on that, right?
Yeah.
So when they die on that stake, you're hearing things that necessarily aren't great. If you follow just the projections for ESPN and Yahoo every single week and don't make any tweaks, your team's not going to be that good. I'm telling you, you'd have to luck out. You know what I mean?
Dude, after I made my stuff, like I look at different people like in the fantasy football industry that actually do the rankings too. And listen, I'm not comparing my rankings to them, but I do kind of want to see where my players fall. Dude, pretty much everyone that's not paid by ESPN or Yahoo has close to the same rankings. Bro, ESPN and Yahoo are so far gone from what every expert in the industry is saying. That's why you have the ADP, which is the average draft position, compared to the expert draft position. The EDP, dude, it's bad. It's crazy. And I feel bad for people that just kind of, like you said, and we play with a handful of them. Dude, 2 days before our draft, we got buddies going like, oh, yeah, you think this guy's doing well? Like, how's this guy doing in camp? Like, dude, he's crushing it. Like,
and there's the late hype. There's always these players that all of a sudden, it's like the kind of the way that goes with the NFL draft. When people all of a sudden, the guy that the Jaguars drafted first overall, great player, don't get me wrong, but he also played on a team that had a ton of other superstars with him. You look at guys from Georgia who dropped to the Eagles. What's his name? Who's the linebacker that dropped on Philly?
Dean?
Yeah. Dean. So Dean dropped
round?
all the way down. But meanwhile, the Jaguars got a guy drafted number 1 who wasn't even supposed to be in the first round originally. And his stock went up and his stock went up and his stock went up. And that's what happens when all of a sudden people start talking late before the fantasy football drafts happen, when you see a guy in preseason or he looks good in camp. So sometimes it's good to get ahead of the curve so you can make an actual decision based on facts and based on not what the experts are coercing you into thinking. But we're going to save that for the end of the show, I think, because I think what we should talk about first is like current events. I do think that.
Yeah. What's going on today?
I'm not saying this here because I'm a New Yorker, but there's a lot of stuff going on in the NBA trade rumors. And I want to talk. We posted a poll about it on Twitter. Is today's day and age, are people giving up way too many draft picks, way too many assets to get that superstar? Is the free agency superstar, super team, like the LeBron, D-Wade, Bosh, like the Celtics when they went out and they got Ray Allen and they got the big ticket after they already had Paul Pierce. Is that like era done? And now teams are starting, you're really going to win if you build through the draft primarily and not just based off of, trades and free agents. And the reason why I say that is because we just saw Rudy Gobert, and we touched on it a little bit last episode, but Rudy Gobert went for an astronomical amount. People who don't know what, like, aren't really like looking at the trades and just see things from the outside
Dude, the
are going to
Wolves
look at that
ruined the
trade and
market.
say, oh, they got Rudy Gobert. That's a great trade. Okay, it is. And then they'll look at it, Joe, and they'll be like, oh, they only gave up 4 firsts. Oh, I mean, that there's been other trades that have gone for 3 or 4 firsts. But Joe, as we know, that deal, if you look at it with a fine-tooth comb, it's not only 4 first-round draft picks.
Bro, it's awful. It's 5 players. It was 2 or 3 starters. It was a 2 role players. It was a first round pick this year. And what was the pick swap again?
So they had just basically a round swap, and obviously, if Utah is getting rid of everybody, you assume that their pick is going to be an early round pick. So you swap there, and it's just like basically giving them another first round pick, right? So 4 first round picks, the pick swap, and then they gave up 4 players in that trade. And one of the players in that trade was a guy that Minnesota just drafted in the first round. So if you
really 6 first round draft picks, like when you break it down.
Essentially, it's like 5.5 first round draft picks if you do the math. And Rudy Gobert is a great player, right? But Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley, Rudy Gay, Royce O'Neal, and Rudy Gobert, all 4 of them on the same team, lost in the first round of the playoffs last year. First round. And you're giving up 6 round picks to get that guy. Do you think your roster is as good? Don't get me wrong. Karl Anthony Towns is a good player. I think he's a good player, but he's a stretch 4 or 5, which is why they got Gobert. They needed more defense.
But now, dude, what do you think? Ant-Man is going to out of nowhere become a top 10 shooting guard? D'Angelo Russell, keep it going?
The West is so loaded, Joe.
I don't see, dude. They ruined the market. They gave up too much, and I don't think they made their team that much better.
I think they're better. They are a better team with him, but they have no future, so the window is going to be a couple years. Even low-key, D'Angelo Russell he's got some years under him now, right? You know what I mean? He's bounced around from a few teams, and he's like not amazing. He's good, but
I mean, dude, he played with Kobe, so right off the bat, that's what 7, 8 years ago,
right? So the window of opportunity is so small there that if D. Russ isn't really the player you think he is, and if Karl Anthony Towns doesn't get better by not having to play the 4, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe he got away with being as good as he was as playing a stretch center sometimes because he had more chances down low and could use his speed. But maybe at the 4, 3-ish sometimes, depending on what they trot out there, maybe it won't be an advantage to him. As a Knicks fan, I watched them have Melo, Stoudemire, and Chandler, and it was too much front court. It was too many big men, and they needed better guard play. Obviously this team has better guards than that, but I think that the West is so loaded. Phoenix is still going to be better than you. They might regress a little bit. That's a hot take. Phoenix, the Suns are going to regress. They just are. They had a phenomenal year, 60-something wins. It's not going to happen again, especially as Chris Paul had a phenomenal year, and I love Chris Paul, but he's not going to have a better year. He's going to regress. But still, let's say they finish ahead of him. Let's say the Warriors. Obviously, the Warriors just won it, and who knows? They might get KD. We'll talk about that next.
Yep.
They're going to be better than them. The Grizzlies are going to be better than them. The Grizzlies just beat them in the playoffs. And I don't think Rudy Gobert takes them ahead of them because I think that that Memphis team is good. They got a lot of young talent there.
Dude, what was it? Steven Adams. I saw some strange stat. Steven Adams was the oldest player on that team. So he's 29, 30. Dude, the next oldest starter on the court during that playoff run was like 23, 24 years old.
Right.
So they're young.
It's Zaire Williams, Jaren Jackson, John Morant. I mean, the list goes on of all these. Desmond Bane. Like, those guys are really good role players that could turn into all being, like, borderline superstars.
Desmond Bane doesn't look like it, but, dude, yeah, what is he? First year, second year in the league? He looks 30, but –
Right. All right, so my opinion is there's still four, maybe 5 teams at least that could finish ahead of them in the West. So it's a lot to give up. But it's not even so much that trade necessarily. It's the precedent you set because you traded that for Rudy Gobert. Now, honestly, I watched Donovan Mitchell take over Utah the year before that. I mean, I know Rudy Gobert was there, but Rudy Gobert didn't have as good of a season. And I don't think Utah has as good of a team as they did this past year. He took them to the Western Conference Finals a couple of years ago. So if he goes for 4 first-round picks, a pick swap, a player that you just drafted in the first round, you want to look at it as 5, 6 first-round picks. If you don't, fine. Don't look at it that way.
Argue.
The problem is now that what is Donovan Mitchell going to go for? And look at the offer that they just – I mean, the Knicks are a disaster franchise, right? I mean, they just are. They're one of the most historic franchises, but they haven't won You know what I mean? And since 1973, they haven't made the final since 2000. You know
I
what I
mean,
mean?
dude,
So they were 9
that's
years old.
Jordan's fault. That '90s Knicks team, just because they went against Jordan, what, 4 or 5 times in a row? It's
I mean, sure. That's obviously going to play. That's obviously going to play a factor, but it's not the only factor, right? Because even the 2 years, the 2 years they didn't run into Jordan, they went to the finals and they still lost in the finals. So they didn't win when Jordan wasn't there. But regardless, the point is to set that precedent. If it's not the Knicks, if it's another team, what are they going to have to trade? Because the offer that they just turned down, thank God they didn't mortgage their whole franchise for it. 6 first-round picks, six first-round picks alone. Then they had to get Quickly, Toppin, McBride, Grimes, and there was one other, maybe a pick swap involved in there. So come on. I
so
mean,
you're
like
actually talking. Dude, Quigley was a great second round pick. Should have been a first. Toppin was a first round pick. So, and you said also a pick swap and 6 for this.
and McBride and Grimes. And let me tell you something. Quentin Grimes was the best player in the summer league this year of any team.
Dude, this is like I said, the Gobert thing completely ruined it. Because like how you're talking about what the Knicks tried to give up, dude, I could only imagine what the Nets are trying to grab with KD or Kyrie. Dude, if Gobert goes for, 5 players, 4 first round draft picks, and a pick swap, what is KD worth? 10 first round picks?
And that's what I think. I think they almost ruined it because now the flip side is obviously the Knicks said no to that trade. Listen, if they said, okay, instead of 6 first round picks, trade us 5 because you have 8. If you have 8 future first round picks, trade us 5 instead of 6, and instead of Quickly, Toppin, McBride, and Grimes, give us 2 of those players. I think the Knicks would do it. So that deal might still happen because no one else has the assets the Knicks have to give up. But here's the caveat
8
with
first round
KD.
picks is a lot.
KD is not as young of a player as Donovan Mitchell. So the amount of teams he wants to go to is even smaller. He wants to go to he wanted to go to Phoenix, Miami, or Golden State, right? So we know Phoenix is out of it now because they just matched the offer sheet with DeAndre Ayton.
Yep.
And the Nets said the only way they would trade him was if they got Devin Booker in return. And Phoenix was like, no way. I'm not trading for a 30-something mid-30-year-old KD who still has an Achilles that who knows, yeah, he worked through a year of it, but can he keep going off it? So now there's nowhere to trade him. And look at what the Nets' value is. So he demands a trade. The Nets have nowhere to trade him. Who's going to trade for KD right now? Miami has 2 first-round picks they can get. They could try to do a 3-way trade to get another team involved to maybe get one more pick in there. So even if they got another pick and got 3 first-round picks, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, 3 first-round picks, and what else are they going to give up?
The Nets get fleeced by that.
Nets are not going to take that trade.
But dude, it's we mentioned in the last show, man, my dream trade, send him back to Golden State. Send him back. Dude, Poole, Wiggins, give me throw in Wiseman, but really we still don't know what he is.
Wiseman, Poole, Wiggins, 3 firsts.
First, send him. I think that dude, Golden State's going back to the finals, probably winning 1, maybe 2. So, yes, that trade is worth it. And, dude, the Nets get to rebuild.
So, so that's like I just think, like I said, my argument was our team's giving up too much. Is it ruined? And I do think it is ruined. It was one thing. Remember, like years back when, the Celtics made that trade, it was 4 first-round picks, and they got Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. And even back then, it turned out to be a terrible trade.
It ended up being, I think, 2 more players, but both guys were 7, 8, 9. Yeah, it didn't matter.
Right, they're end of the bench guys because they needed to fill cap space. So, but the point is, if back then 2 guys who just came off a couple years ago, winning a finals, losing in a finals appearance, going to 2 finals,
Gobert should have went for 2 players, 2 first-round draft picks, and that would have set the tone where now you could get these draft picks trades, like you said, with Donovan Mitchell maybe going for 3 or 4 and 2 players, or KD for 3 and 3, or I'll stay on my team, Kyrie. Like, dude, we talked about it. Kyrie only wants to go play with the Lakers. That means what? They're getting Russell Westbrook back? Dude, same thing. It's an even worse Kyrie situation. And you don't get any first-round draft picks. You get no draft capital. It's just miserable.
It's crazy. So, like, you think teams would learn? I remember being, as a Knicks fan, like, and years later, Wilson Chandler and Danilo Gallinari did absolutely nothing with their career pretty much. Gallinari's bounced around and been a good like bench player. Wilson Chandler had to play overseas and never really became anything. And they gave up 2 first-round picks and a swap. So you're going to call it 3 for Melo, who won a scoring title for the Knicks, took them to the playoffs almost every year. I know it was a couple first-round exits, and then they had the 1 year where they lost in the semis to the Pacers. But that was considered a failure, and it was 3 times less what you would be giving up for players like Gobert and Mitchell, who aren't as good as Carmelo Anthony in his prime.
No,
it's crazy. It's almost ruined basketball. But Joe, I want to hear your thoughts on where does Kevin Durant end up? Where does Kyrie Irving end up? And what teams are going to make the finals in the NBA this year? Hot takes.
Hot take. Westbrook for Kyrie, and I don't know what ends up happening. And I think Durant stays on the Nets, and you bring back that Thunder, because I don't think Durant's going to be able to get traded for the actual appropriate amount. And I think Kyrie and Durant's relationship is completely done. I think that the Bucks will end up going back to the finals, and I think Golden State goes back to the finals.
I mean, I believe that too. I think that the Bucks are going back this year, and I think Golden State. I think that if they don't swing a trade for Durant, I mean, there could be another team in the West.
Yeah,
but that's probably the popular pick. And there's a couple teams that I would say don't sleep on. If you want to put a future on teams to win the East, Toronto would be a team I put a future on. They got a lot of young talent there. They got Trent Jr., Anunoby, all those guys. Like that would be my thing, is to put futures on teams that are like 6 seeds, 5 seed area, because all it takes is they have a little bit better view than people expect. A 1 or a 2 seed doesn't have as good of a year as you expect. Everybody, the popular pick is Philly. Let me tell you something. Philly sucks. James Harden, the beard is washed. He doesn't have that step anymore. With the new foul rules, he can't create the way he used to create. He's getting old. He's out of shape. Even when he gets back in shape, he's not that great. Joel Embiid doesn't have that much help there. Yeah, Tyrese Maxey, sure, blah, blah, blah. There'd be a good team.
Boy.
They're not winning
Long Island himself, Tobias.
Yeah, I mean, but they're not winning the East. And every year, people, Philly. Even when they finish the 1 seed, their first or second round exit. Like
now, as far as putting a future on, let's say, a playoff team that's very low, where's your take on Miami or Atlanta? Like that.
I was going to say, I actually love Atlanta. And people Trae Young rubs people the wrong way. So people will not give Atlanta credit. But Atlanta made it to the Eastern Conference Finals against the Bucks.
Yep.
Not last year, but the year before. The year they beat the Knicks in the first round. They made it to the Eastern Conference Finals with the Bucks. And now, to me, you had Dejounte Murray. Like, people are not talking about that as much. Like, Dejounte Murray is a very, very good player. And now that he's not in San Antonio and he has the other players around him, even
I like Hunter as well.
Guys like that.
Hunter's an athletic freak.
Yeah. So you look at guys like that, not to just say Trae Young. You look at him, you look at Clint Capella, Dejounte Murray, this team is good.
Yeah.
So they're a team. Toronto's a sneaky team. Like, those are teams that you get so much value at it. Like, throw $50 or $100 on a future to win the East. I'm not saying win the whole thing, because that's so much harder, because now you got to beat a team in the West as well.
You have to West, beat that, Golden State, the Suns. Dude, does Luka actually take that next step? And it's my league now.
I think with having Brunson gone, I don't think so.
Well,
I think Brunson is a big hit, because he complimented him pretty well, despite being a short backcourt that didn't defend so well. And when Luka was out, Brunson took over. So I think, low key, they just don't have enough. It's the same thing.
So you think the Mavs are going to be maybe a 4, 5, 6 seed, bounce out first round?
Not first round. I could see them winning a round, and if they get lucky, winning 2. But I don't see them winning 3 rounds to make it to the finals. And I definitely don't see them, because the West is just so good. And then if they do that, I don't see them obviously winning the whole thing. But I love Spencer Dinwiddie. I love him. But to me, it's just you have Luka and Dinwiddie, and that's it. Brunson's gone. So what do you really have? Finney-Smith? Who? They don't have depth. Reggie Bullock, Finney-Smith. I think Hardaway's gone, right? He's not even on the team anymore. Do they trade him? I could be wrong. Somebody fact check me on that in the
I
comments.
wouldn't. I didn't even know Hardaway was still playing basketball. I feel like 2 years ago I knew, but
because he was an okay role player and dealt with injuries. But
yeah,
like Frank Ntilikina, like who, like their team doesn't have like the it factor for me. In the West, to me, it's like a Memphis or somebody like that.
dude, I would take Memphis. You're talking about a team that lives rent free right now in Golden State's head, and they're only going to get better. Everyone's a year older. Everyone's a year better. So,
that's my take on that. So, I mean, listen, it's 26 minutes in, and probably 20 minutes of that we were talking about NBA already, right? Because we just bullshit about fantasy for like 5 minutes. So,
yeah.
I think the next best bet is to talk as we go into the All-Star break. I think we should recap a little bit about the first half of this MLB season, because I think aside from this year being the year where by far the most out of the zone strike calls have been called, and that kind of ruining the game a little bit. If you check on the Oddsfathers Twitter, guys, I retweeted something from BetMGM that shows in today's Braves game getting punched out on a ball that was literally like it completely in the other batter's box. And then there's montages that show how many times, this one was 4.5 inches off the plate. This one was 5.7 inches off the plate, over and over and over again, of how bad it's been. And people are like umpires and stuff. And people are like, you got to keep the game natural. Like, no one's saying get rid of the umpires, but you could have a home plate umpire to say if someone slides across home plate, if he's safe, or if there's catcher interference, something like that. But balls and strikes should be recorded electronically, period. It's ruining the game. As a Yankee fan, I watch Aaron Judge get called out on the most strikeouts by far, statistically, that are out of the zone. And I'm sick of it. It ruins the game.
So you want more camera interfere? Like, you want more people to be watching, like, the eye in the sky?
Yeah, it should be, because it's ruining the game. I remember, people would always say, it's nice to have a touch and a flow to the game. That's what you get. You know what I mean? Sometimes, it's how the batters, you say it's a need of this, need of, numbers, and that's need of letters, and that's your strike zone. But sometimes they're crouching a little more. And I get that. But now it's the officiating so bad. And sometimes guys want to go home. It's like that to me. No, but seriously, there's, I was listening to the Michael Kay show the other day, and they were talking about some of these umpires saying, and some of these people execs that work for MLB saying that there is a flow to the game where they'll say if a team is up 11-1, they're gonna have a bigger strike zone now because the game has gotten on late. They don't need to call as precisely. And no, in what world is that okay?
No, it's just like what the NFL did. Dude, throw a few guys in New York, not in New York, but just there watching the game. And bro, if you see something wrong, you might have to call down. You figure it out.
It's ridiculous. But anyway, I digress. My point was to talk about our biggest takeaways. Joe, I want to hear your top 3 takeaways from the MLB season first half.
Top 3 takeaways. Off the fly, the New York Subway Series is becoming more and more realistic. Okay. 2, this home run derby with all the bats actually that I want in it, I think it might actually be the best one yet. And 3, and this takeaway it's brand new, we might have a new all-star in New York, and I couldn't be more excited to have this go through.
So if anybody didn't see that breaking news yet, we'll go on and I'll talk about my biggest takeaways, because I know a lot of people don't want to hear New York all over again, but this is not us being fans. This is truth that just came out.
This is real. It happened today.
And I don't think it's going to happen for 2 reasons, but I'll tell those reasons after you tell the news. That is verified news from MLB sources.
So Juan Soto turned down a 15-year, $440 million deal. Okay.
First off, I can't believe that's the day and age where you're an idiot. He'll turn that down because I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
no,
he's going to turn that down because his agent is no, we need to set the bar for a new average annual value. So you turn down 15 years at 440 because you want to be paid $32 million a year instead of 28.5. But now no one's going to give you 15.
Dude, what could you possibly want? 5 more million, 10 million? Dude, it's almost nothing in the 15-year span.
So that's the thing. Their agent wants to set a bar, right? and they want to set the bar for the MLB Players Association, et cetera, that it becomes a new norm that players should make 32, 33, 34 million a year. Other than like, Scherzer was different because it was a 2-year deal.
2-year deal.
But that's what's going to happen now.
Going to get that.
But that's what they're expecting. So you turn down 15 at 28, 29 million a year. And what is somebody going to give you now? 11 or 12 at 40? It's basically the same money. It's a little pain. I get it, but I don't get it. But anyway.
I wrote this down though. It's as of right now, since he entered baseball, it's a 293 batting average, 117 home runs.
Juan Soto, by the way. That's what we're talking about. Juan Soto.
354 RBIs. And since 2021, he leads the majors in walks, which is 224.
Major important stat. On base percentage, way more important than average. Casual fans look at that. Real baseball fans, real analytics fans know on base percentage is everything.
Yep. Dude, it's just crazy. It's to be listen, he's 24, 25. He's very young. They have control of him until 2024. So as far as actually paying him and shipping him out, they got 2 years. So
like he is like essentially worth it. Like he's so young, and that's like you can't put a price on that. It's almost like invaluable to say giving somebody a contract that young. And I think that's the reason why guys like, Judge, et cetera, like weren't getting their money right away. Not that he won't get paid. Of course, Judge is going to get paid. But, that's why there's a hesitance to, I'm going to give this guy 10 million. It's going to be the same old story that we give these, guys who either can't stay healthy or they do stay healthy. But then after 3 or 4 years of steep drop off, those contracts only pay off if you win within the first few years. You'll deal with, if you win in the first couple of years, or if you win 2 over the lifespan of it, you'll deal with it. But if you don't win a championship, or you win 1, and maybe you could have won that anyway without giving a 12, 15-year term for that, then it becomes, is the contract worth it?
Dude, even if you listen, it's the 15-year deal. Okay. If you get 10 very good or elite seasons, you did hit on that deal.
Even less than that, I would say. I would argue that if you got 8, if you got a 15-year deal, if you got 8 really good seasons, that's
really
okay. Because if you're getting 8 really good seasons out of someone at the age they're at now, that they're well into their 30s, still playing elite, and like that's like telling you, like, oh, I'm going to put somebody in your lineup who's going to be an MVP. They might win a batting title, and multiple MVPs, win a batting title, and contribute to a winning franchise. Like if somebody tells you if somebody tells you you're going to have an MVP or a Cy Young, etc., and I'm going to give you 8 years in a row of that, of someone being that good, you have to think to yourself, wow, we might win a championship. And in the grand scheme of things, if you could win a championship in 8 years, that's a success. Because how many teams and fans are there, franchises who haven't won ever? You're a Vikings fan, you're a Nets fan, you're a Mets fan. So ever. I'm not trying to say that to rip you, but I'm being honest.
No, I make fun of myself constantly.
Like me, I'm a Jets fan. Okay, the Jets won one. Yeah, when? 55 years ago? I wasn't even alive.
Oh, yeah, dude. I can't bring up – listen, the Mets won in 86. That's really it.
So,
dude,
8 years, I take it.
Yeah, and you know what? If you really do – I guess, 8 years, he's elite. Okay, you got half the contract. But, Nikki, what is your 3 hot takes now that baseball is half over?
Wait. So you didn't get into the trade? You said that you had some breaking news about Juan Soto. That wasn't speculation because we were Yankees fans.
Dude, I skipped over
contract. You tell about the news.
Oh, I guess, yeah. The only 2 teams that have reached out to the Nationals that are doing their due diligence on trading for Juan Soto, Mets and Yankees. The only teams that have reached out. I love it.
Now, here you go. I'm going to tell you why that's not going to happen.
Tell me.
So that's not going to happen for one of 2 reasons. I don't think the Nationals are going to trade to a player of that caliber. It's one thing to trade within the division. Right. There's no way they're trading a guy of that caliber within the division. You know what I mean? They didn't trade, you know what I mean? Like, they didn't trade Scherzer. They said, okay, Scherzer, we'll wait until you go sign somewhere else. And they won with Scherzer, and they won with Soto, and they still didn't re-sign him, but they didn't trade Scherzer. So I don't think,
you don't think the price could be right?
I don't think so. Listen, anything's possible, but I don't think, if you if you agree, disagree, also feel free to comment. Would a team trade a legitimate superstar, maybe the most sought out player, young player in history or recent history? Would they trade him within the same division?
Actually, dude,
I say no.
You don't even have to go that far back. And it affects both of our football teams. When the Packers refused to trade Brett Favre to the Vikings. So we went and played for the Jets and then went and played for the Vikings. They wouldn't do it. The Vikings apparently offered him multiple first-round picks for a 40-year-old quarterback, and they wouldn't do it.
Right. So I don't, and there's been times like, there's been countless times like, remember there was so talk about Gleyber Torres for DeGrom because would DeGrom win there? Does he have some shoulder issues? Did he want to play there? Did the Mets want to pay him if they didn't think they were going to win? And then Gleyber Torres and Andujar, that whatever package it was, those guys, would they work out because the Mets needed bats and not pitching at the time because they had Wheeler and they had
DeGrom was number 4 or 5.
Right. So we've seen those talks, and that didn't happen. And I know that the Nationals Mets isn't that kind of rivalry, but I don't think that they would do that. And number 2, I don't think the Yankees will do it because the Yankees know if they trade for Juan Soto, then they're not paying Aaron Judge. You're not paying both of them when you're paying Stanton 27. Okay. Well, Stanton's contract is $28 million a year, but I think Miami's paying a portion of that still. But still, there's no way. There's not enough. Would
you be able to send the farm team in Stanton?
I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't think they're gonna trade for Juan Soto. I mean, that'd be wild if they traded Stanton, because if they were still paying Stanton the full contract, I would say maybe. But this guy also has had 2018, he had a great year. Last year had a great year. So 19 and 20 were the years where he was unhealthy or didn't have great years. But he had 2 really good years so far for them. And this year, he's got 23 home runs, 24 home runs already at the All-Star.
Playing really well.
I don't know that they want to do that. But also because Miami's eating a portion of the contract. No, I don't know. I have to pull up to see how much of it they're eating. But I know that they're not paying the full contract. So there's too many mouths to feed, and having to sign Aaron Judge, which now Aaron Judge is probably going to cost them 7 years, $230 was their original offer. He turned it down. The season he's having now, I mean, this guy's going to now get 8 years, $300 million probably. 8 years, 285, 290 or 9 years, 300, something like.
Which is almost the exact same amount Soto's looking for.
Right, but Soto's going to want a longer term because he's younger. He's not 31 years old like Judge. Yep. So that's the reason why I think that's not going to happen at all. But you asked me about my takeaways.
Oh yeah, I want to know.
So Joe, I want to know. Great 90s song. Oh, my boy Will, game on. Yo, guys, do me a favor. Will makes awesome content, and Will's been doing this for a long time. He's almost at 1,000 subscribers now. If you're not subscribed to him already, I would definitely say go subscribe to that almost immediately. His content's awesome. He has some headline grabbers too. Will was gung-ho posting that the Seahawks were going to sign trade for Baker Mayfield, and he was the first one before I saw anything on any type of news article. He was the first one that I saw reported it, that the Seahawks leaked. I mean, the NFL shop leaked the Seahawks jersey with Baker Mayfield on, which is a fact. It actually happened. And then somehow the talks ended up, not going through, and now Baker Mayfield is obviously on Carolina. So, Will's saying to us, I love Will, by the way, but yeah, game on, follow, Twitter.
Dude, yeah, no, we're talking about the 44 mil. It's crazy.
So you're the only one that thinks turning down 44. We were just talking about that. I don't think it's insane at all by any means. I think it's insane. Yeah. I don't think you're insane for saying that turning it down is.
You turned down almost $500 million.
But we know now that the Players Association, not only just the Players Association, we also know that the agents, they have a thing, where they need to meet and set the standard for now the new highest AAV for players. And being that Soto is as young as he is, and you brought up the stats that he has, they're as good as anybody's. Yep. He's going to get it. I don't think he's going to get 15 years more than that, but someone's going to give him 12 years at 480, and now I make $40 million a year. So it's insane in theory for turning it down, but it's not insane because he's going to get it. I would only think it's insane of turning it down if you're like, okay, no one's offering you that now.
So what do you think is more important at his age? Do you think the money per year, or do you think the length and then the grand total?
I think the length is more important at his age, because God for injuries, man. You know what I mean? Like we've seen it a million times.
Yeah.
If injuries happen or as good as you could be, all of a sudden, father time, boom, something happens. I just think that that's why it's most important
Yeah,
to
because
get that long contract. Because if you get injured or you're not the same player you used to be, you're still locked into that contract. And when you're getting
let's
paid
say
the
you get,
highest player in the league,
well, I was going to say, like, let's say you get half of that. Let's say you get to 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, and you make, $370 million. So you're, sick. Dude, can you really get that second contract for anything?
I agree. And Will's point there again, you know what I mean? Game on. Like I get you could get more, but like at the point, what's a few more million a year when you get 15 years guaranteed at 29 million a year? I agree. But the problem is these agents, the Players Association, and what desperate teams are willing to pay. Look at when the Mariners gave Robinson Cano that outrageous contract, and it didn't work out. And
the Mets took it on.
well, yeah, well, that's a vintage Mets move, but you know what I'm saying. So that's my theory on that. But my biggest takeaways, and on anybody, honestly, my biggest takeaway is it's not a cold take in a sense that I'm wrong, but it's a cold take in the sense of nobody's going to agree with me on that. I'll go 3-1. All right. My number 3 takeaway will be the New York Yankees. Obviously, I'm not, because I'm a Yankee fan, but number 3, the Yankees were on pace, even after just losing like 4 out of 6 games, still on pace to arguably finish with the most regular season wins. They're doing this with pitching that night in and night out. Their starting rotation is all around a 3 ERA. And the big swing and miss strikeout or home run bust team that everyone was hating on analytics. All of a sudden, they're playing small ball. They're getting better fielding with guys like Kiner Falefa and Rizzo for a whole year. My takeaway is that, they're legit. It's not a fluke. And they are going to win the World Series. That's my number 3 takeaway. My number 2 takeaway is, I would say the Mariners. The Mariners, and that was our lock of the day that we hit again today, baby. Let's go. So if you're not already subscribed, what are you doing? Subscribe. I'm 2-1 in my 3 locks, and my 1 loss was the end of the 9th inning. So that's what I'm gonna say. But I will say that my takeaway is the Mariners. Mariners won 22 of their last 25 heading into the All-Star break. And 22 of 25 into the All-Star break is the biggest stretch, the best stretch of any team since 2017. And I think if it wasn't for the fact that they played in the same division as the Astros, you'd be hearing a lot more about them. They got guys like Gilbert, like Flexen, and they have good players in their lineup. Watch them to be a team to make a deal at the deadline to become even better. And with the amount of teams that make the playoffs now, they're going to be pretty nasty.
So they're in the playoffs, and can you upset 1 or 2 teams?
Especially if you make a big trade at the deadline. Now, I know they're not a
Yep.
huge market team, but we saw what they paid for Robinson Cano. So they can make a deal if they think they got a chance. You win 22 out of 25, there's hope. My number 1 takeaway is the Chicago White Sox 2022 team is the biggest disappointment in baseball by far. I don't care who else you talk about. The Orioles, that's a great team. They're like an honorable mention that they're a game over 500. The Orioles, the problem is they're still 16 and 19 games behind the Yankees or whatever right now. But the White Sox, a team that last year was pounding lefties, was getting good pitching, was hitting home runs, was getting great fielding, was a team that played in the Field of Dreams game, et cetera, go on and on. They were the story that this year they were supposed to take that next leap. Tony La Russa, I brought this up last week a little bit, but obviously showing his age, showing that he's not wasn't the best manager. And then I'll also talk about the fact that analytics driven, as much as sometimes I hate it, it works. Because if analytics didn't work, then that shows you everything. What'd you say, Joe, the stats they were? The White Sox had the 5th best batting average in the league. And what else?
Oh, dude, they were top 5. Yeah, hold on. I got it right here in my notes. But dude, it was embarrassing because their bats have been so good outside of the home run ball. So, dude, it doesn't matter if you get on base. Bro, if you can't drive in those runs, then you're absolutely useless to baseball.
Everyone hates on the swing and miss home run mentality that is nowadays. But here's the unfortunate truth is that that's clearly showing in the White Sox brand. that they could be the 5th best in batting average and they could be an above average fielding team, but they're not hitting with runners in scoring position and they're not hitting home runs and they're not good in the worst division of baseball. You have the Tigers and the Royals and Cleveland and the Twins aren't even that great. We know what the Twins are every year. They play a little bit better than you expect. They sneak into the playoffs. They get blown out in the playoffs. That's the Twins. Sorry, it is what it is.
No. Listen to this. Since we talked about the White Sox, they have improved in runs and batting average to now 3rd best in baseball and 14th in runs.
And they still suck. They still suck. All right, so that's it. That's it.
We'll talk about baseball. They've had to do this, dude. What are they? 2, 4. Bro, they're 5-1 in their last 6 games. They're now even. They're 500, 46 and 46. Can they do something?
I don't think they could do it. Maybe they can make it a borderline race in that division, but are they going to do anything? I don't know.
No. But I just always, dude, I really like the White Sox. I was heavy investing, like we talked about earlier. I invested heavily into Lewis Roberts, and I've been sadly mistaken on my investment.
We're gonna get into NFL talk now anyway, because we're done with we're done with basketball and our baseball talk anyway. As we head into the All-Star break, let's take a pause on it. We'll come back Tuesday with baseball winners and more winning picks for you. But I love tacos. What's up, bro? Any NFL futures you're eyeing right now?
Well, Nick, what's your future, man? You told me to hammer it.
Mine is we'll get to another one because I'm going to post the next comment in here. We'll give you a little light on that. And I like it just because it seems like it always ends up hitting, except for maybe 1 year recently. Not because he's a fan of this team. But me personally, I'm going to do a homer pick here. And everyone's going to say, all right, the Jets suck. The Jets can very well suck. But A, Zach Wilson's going to bang your mom. And B, seriously, the Jets over-under, like we talked about last week briefly, is their over-under was the highest future bet ever put in on for NFL, percentage-wise compared to other bets. It was FanDuel that reported it. Also, they were honestly the most bet to win the division. I don't agree with that. I'm not saying they're going to win the division.
Well, so there's money to be made if they catch fire in a bottle.
But the New York Jets
goes down.
Could be. But the New York Jets over-under for wins is 5.5. You play 17 regular season games. Their back end of the schedule, the beginning of the schedule is a little rough, but the beginning of the schedule also includes you're playing against a Cleveland team that's most likely not going to have Deshaun Watson. So who's going to be starting for them with no Baker Mayfield or Deshaun Watson? They can steal that game. Right. So they could win that game. You look at all their draft picks that they made. Obviously, it was well talked about. You don't win in the draft, you win on the field. But they had the best draft of any team by far. There you go. Zach Wilson coming from He put on 20 pounds, they said. So I don't know what that's good for. Maybe he could break away and evade some sacks. Those moms can't evade his sack, but maybe they'll break away and evade some sacks. But listen, 5.5 wins. You have an easier back end of the schedule, right? There's 17 games now. 6-11 hits you that over. 6-11. You're getting the defensive end back, Carl Lawson, who was literally the best or highest, sack leader in the league, and he got injured before the year started. You're having CJ Mosley now for a whole year. You signed Reed, who's a great corner, right? You drafted extremely, extremely well. You made a trade for Layden Tomlinson to beef up the offensive line. I'm not saying people are going to crucify me and say, oh, the Jets. I'm not saying they're going to win 9, 10 games, 11 games, make the playoffs. 6-11, dump your money on it. At the end of the year, if they play division games, the Bills, the Patriots, even the Dolphins, if you think they're going to be good with Tyreek Hill, if any of those teams are close to clinching, they might be resting some starters or they might not be as motivated. They could steal a win or two like that. They could steal a win against a Cleveland team that they play with no Deshaun Watson. So that's my future for you. Joe's got a couple futures I know that he likes that aren't homer picks. So let's hear him, Joe.
So there are a few futures that I like, but my first, just like Nick's, will actually be a homer pick. The Vikings are at 9 right now. So that gives you the opportunity to push on some books, but most of the time you're going to get 9.5. Just like Nick said, you're talking about the second best team in the NFC North. You're talking about a much easier schedule. And now you're talking about Mike Zimmer's finally gone. Okay.
No Devontae Adams.
Okay. Let's say they do it every year. They steal one from Green Bay. Say they beat Chicago twice. They beat the Lions twice. You're looking at 5-1. Okay. I looked at their
4-2
schedule
is
and
gonna
I
happen.
thought
They
worst
ain't winning
case
5 games
scenario.
in the division.
What was that, Nick?
They're gonna go 4-2 in the division. They're not gonna win 5 games in the division because it's hard to do that no matter who you are. Unless you're in the AFC East when you were the Patriots with Tom Brady, you're not going 5-1 in the division. But
You think Jared Goff or Justin Fields could pull it off?
I think that the Lions can win one game on them where you're like, oh my God, the Vikings Kirk Cousins blew that one. The Vikings blew that one. Yeah.
I mean, last year they won in overtime, but that's because Amon-Ra St. Brown was wide open and Zim was still the head coach.
I think that I'm saying I think I'm being fair by saying the Vikings go 4-2 within the division. That's fair.
Okay, even if they go 4-2,
I'm not hating on the overpick. I'm just saying 5-1, you're asking for a lot.
I mean, listen, they're going to steal one from Green Bay. Let's say they chuck it and they really Vikings it up, bro. Philly, Detroit, New Orleans. Okay, right away. You don't know what Philly's going to do, but let's say that's a loss. Detroit, win. New Orleans with Jameis, win. Chicago, win. I don't think Tua's good. I think Tua's garbage. I don't care that he got a new coordinator. I don't care that he got a new toy to play with in Tyreek Hill. Okay?
Miami's going to be maybe 1 or 2 games better than they were last year, which is still you're not in special.
Okay? Let's say Arizona. Vikings mess up, they lose. The Manders, they win. Buffalo probably could be in the Super Bowl. Vikings lose. Dallas, hard-fought game, lose. New England, Jets, Detroit, Indy, Giants. The last 4 games of the season, I think they could end up going 3-1.
And losing the only one they lose is to the Jets, right?
100%, bro. Zach Wilson. Dude, Kirk Cousins has been hiding his wife this whole time, bro.
Hide your kids, hide your wife.
Wife's not allowed to go to the game. Kirk Cousins' wife's not allowed to go to the game. Harrison Smith's wife not allowed to go to the game. I'm almost positive Eric Kendrick's wife is actually a Sports Illustrated model, so she's too young for you, bro.
Yeah, true. So I like that, and I agree. I think they have a good schedule and a good division where, like I said, they could win 4. Maybe they do go 5-1, but if they go 4-2 within the division,
10-7 is not a great year.
Right. They go 9-8, you push, right? You know what I'm saying? Because some books have 9. If they go 9-8, you push. And they play in a division where they play the Bears and the Lions, and now a Packers team that lost one of their defensive players. Was it Zaire?
Darius Smith is on the Vikings.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So they lost him and they lost Devontae Adams.
Yes.
So you're asking for 9-10 wins to win that bet. I like it. I like both of ours. Usually I'm not going to say no to advise what we tell you guys. But I say, no, I don't like my own bet. But 5.5 for the Jets, 9.5, depending on the book for the Vikings.
Yep. I've already hammered it.
Will, game on. Saying Patriots over 8.5 wins is the easiest future bet to make this season.
It's because he's a really big Devontae Parker guy. That wide receiver is going to take Mac Jones to the next level.
It's so hard to bet against New England, right? Like, it's just so hard for me to say no to say no to this because Bill Belichick does what Bill Belichick does. Aside from that 1 year, a couple years ago, where they still, I think, finished like 7-9, right? Or 7-10. With the Cam Newton year where they missed the playoffs.
Oh, but even then, dude, Cam Newton got COVID and was out for 5 weeks.
Right, but that was the only year that they missed. That was the only bad year they had because the next year they bounced back and got annihilated in the wild card game to Buffalo, right?
Yep. Well, Buffalo because they lost that year.
I can't really argue that because until the Jets prove something and until Miami and the Jets are really improved, they are, right? Tua had a great offseason. They got Tyreek Hill. They got a new coach. The Jets have 1 million first-round draft picks, 1 million free agents. But until those teams prove that on the field, then the Patriots are still playing them. And Bill Belichick's Bill Belichick. He could steal one from Buffalo because he's a great coach. Their division might be easy enough that if they go 4-2 in the division, now you're only asking them to win 5 more games a whole year. But here's my thing, Will, where I'll disagree with you is I wouldn't say it's the easiest future bet to make. All right. Is it, if you gave me on a probability scale from 0 to 100%, I'd probably give it like a 65% chance that hits, 70% chance, which is good. But the easiest bet to make, I don't know about that, dude. You there, Joe?
Yeah. So what I was just looking at, sorry, I was just counting. So the Patriots play 7 teams that might make the playoffs this year. And that's not counting the fact that they're going to play Buffalo twice.
Right.
So it is a all at home. Yeah. And listen, the biggest thing, and I will say that, bro, playing, and I've been to Patriots games, playing those games suck. And I think that's the biggest advantage because you look at it, you have Arizona, Vegas, Cincinnati knows the cold, Buffalo, and you're at Miami. So Arizona, you're at Arizona, Vegas, you're at Vegas. But I mean, dude, that's the cream of the crop right there. You go Buffalo, Arizona, Vegas, Cincinnati, Miami, Buffalo. That's the toughest part of their schedule, and it's at the end of the year.
I agree. So let's look. Joe, can you pull up right now the full Patriots schedule again?
Got it right here.
Read them. Let's play the win-loss-loss-win game. See how
Love
me and
this
you
game.
win-loss-loss-win game.
Or even actually said they always lose in Miami, but they get it over week 1. So they lose in Miami. Then Pittsburgh, win.
I have a win.
Baltimore, win.
I give them a win. Honestly,
Okay.
I don't know why. I just feel like they can out. Lamar Jackson is the type of player that he can outcoach.
Green Bay.
See you week 9 when it catches. That's actually hysterical, though. So Green Bay.
Green Bay.
I'm still gonna give him a loss. I know Devontae Adams isn't there, but
we also said that they win against Baltimore. So you got to split something.
that's true. Fair.
Detroit, win.
Win. So what are we, 3-2?
Yep. Cleveland, win.
Yeah, I'll give them a
Chicago.
win there. Yep.
Win.
So 5-2.
Yep. Jets.
They're gonna beat the Jets. Come on.
Okay. I wanted you to answer, not me.
I think they split. I do think Will's gonna hate me saying this, but I do think that they split with the Jets this year because the Jets are very much improved.
All right, that's week 8. Okay. Then you
So
go
6-2.
Indianapolis. Win. Because Matt Ryan is afraid of Bill Belichick.
Maybe. I'm on the fence about that one. I think that the team surrounding Matt Ryan is so good that Matt Ryan might be good this year.
Dude, Michael Pittman might be the sleeper of fantasy, by the way, but we'll get into that soon.
I'm going to give him a loss on that game.
Okay.
I
Jets again.
think Taylor runs all over them because they don't have the best run defense.
Jets again.
Matt Jones ain't married, so they ain't splitting. I do think they're splitting. So I have them now at what? 6-4?
6-4. Minnesota, loss.
Yeah, I don't see them beating Minnesota. I'd say 6-5.
Buffalo. This is where it counts. Do you split versus Buffalo?
I say they split with Buffalo. So let's call this one a win.
Okay, this is at home, so win.
So what are they? 7-4, 7-5?
And I mean, he's gonna hit because you go at Arizona and at Vegas.
Yep. Even if they win one of those games.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cincinnati.
I don't think they beat Cincinnati.
Miami.
I think they beat Miami. They could beat Miami both games, but you chalk the first one up because they always lose.
January 1st, Miami's coming to them. They're
blowing them out. They're blowing them out that game.
Okay, and then at Buffalo,
and we said they split. So I do think that they win 9 games, but maybe that's me not being generous. That's me giving them a split with the Jets, and who are the Jets? They don't deserve any love, and that's also me giving them. Who'd I give them a loss against?
It was in the beginning of the season. They're also losing against Indianapolis.
Green Bay. I gave them a loss against, which you guys didn't. So
yep.
So they could very well go 10-7, I think. But if they go 10-7, the over-under is 8.5. You win by 2. If I'm not being generous and they only win 9, and that's by splitting with the Jets, they still win 9 games. So
your boy Game On might be right.
What'd you say?
Your boy Game On might be right.
Oh, Will knows his shit, but he's also a homer. Just the way we're a homer about things, like Will tell you that, like Will would let Tom Brady bet. No, I'm not going to go there.
All right. I like this guy.
Who, me or Joe?
Dude, it's you. Look at your face.
Nah, I think he's talking about you because we've known each other for too long that he wouldn't tell me he likes me. He would rip me a new one.
But dude,
Um,
so listen, that's a good bet. I like it.
I
So
like it. All right, so we're gonna end the show with a little fantasy football action that Joe made. Now I'm gonna be involved in this conversation, but I'm gonna be involved in this conversation, but I'm not gonna be heavy involved because I will give Joe credit where credit's due. Joe plays in 436 fantasy football leagues per year, and Joe is a teacher, so in the summer he fucking does nothing but look up fantasy football all day, every day. Because
stats
you're
every
a
day.
loser, get a job, Joe. No, but so he knows his shit about fantasy football. He really does. I'd put him up against the Matt Berries of the world any day of the week.
Thank you.
Twice on Sunday, because Sunday's the day that counts. It's when you get your fantasy points. So, Joe, I want to hear a little about the breakdown that you made and why you made that breakdown.
So pretty much what ended up happening is I started doing this last year, just to kind of see where my final draft would be. I started ranking the top 200 players, in my opinion, and where they fall with different schemes. I break it up, into quarterback, wide receiver, running back, tight end. And I just list them, dude. I look at vacated targets as far as wide receivers. I look at where assistants are going, where, the backup running back is following the offensive coordinator. It's a lot of stuff. I look at just how many times the guy is going to touch the ball. When you actually start breaking that down and you start seeing that, Marquise Brown, he hated playing, in Baltimore. He thought they never threw the ball. Marquise Brown was the third most targeted wide receiver last year. So how can you hate that you think you deserve the number one most targeted? So it's just very interesting stuff as soon as you start breaking it all down into very fine analytics. And then, dude, it's not that difficult.
I would say the issue that a lot of these like pros versus Joes, no pun intended, Joe, where we talk about the ESPN and Yahoo guys is I feel like when a guy goes to a new team or someone gets a updated offensive line or a better running game to complement it, they don't really take those things into effect. All they take away is how many expected targets that they're going to get versus that offense the last year. And I think that that's the reason why if you're playing fantasy football and you're going strictly based off of ADP or EDP, that's why chances are you're like, oh, how come every year I lose in the first round of the playoffs or I make the playoffs? Well, maybe it's because you should make your own list and not just follow what Matthew Berry says.
No, and dude, that's my biggest thing. Like, dude, even if after I told Nick that I made this list today, I was really excited. Like, I was telling some people on Twitter and Instagram that, like, you guys got to come check it out. Like, I'll definitely give my list away. Dude, like, I've moved receivers around already. Bro, nothing's happened in the NFL. But you start thinking just more and more on where this receiver is actually going to go and how many targets per game is he really going to get. Like, now the touchdown equity, it's not really going to happen. Like, all these players are going to regress to the mean, whether that's positive or negative. Dude, like you said, I have way too much time on my hands, so why not do this? But I completely understand why some people don't. Like, dude, if you work a 9 to 5, you still want to go work out, you got a different hobby. Yeah, guess what? August 14th and 15th, when your buddies are going to start drafting, yeah, you're going to look at Matthew Berry or, you listen to Fantasy Pros or anything like that. So I understand, but that's why I'm going to post this list, when it gets closer to fantasy football season, and we'll see how we do.
But let's hear, obviously, we want to hear the boom busts that you have right now on your list compared to where they're like, what are your outliers on your fantasy football list compared to where they're like, where the average draft position, the expert draft position is far off from what you believe? What are your hot takes?
So I think the hottest take I probably have is where I have Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. I know that they paid Aaron Jones last year, but what you saw down the stretch in Green Bay was A.J. Dillon was catching the ball. A.J. Dillon was catching the ball as much as Aaron Jones, and A.J. Dillon was running the ball more than Aaron Jones. So now with Devontae Adams actually gone, I think now A.J. Dillon is going to be the almost 50-50. I think they're going to try to use, Jones in more of a scat back role, and dude, Dillon's going to be between the tackles, touching the ball 20 plus times a game. And dude, if you give that man 20 plus touches a game, whether only 3 or 4 are receiving catches, receptions, dude, he's just going to be more consistent, in my opinion. I understand Aaron Jones, I'm still going to draft before A.J. Dillon, but I think the biggest surprise when I look at my list is where A.J. Dillon is compared to consensus.
Okay. Next hot take.
I think Justin Jefferson.
I'm not saying this because we play in the same fantasy football league.
No,
I'm trying
no.
to get info out of you. I just feel like this is valuable information for your everyday life, Mary Beth Dimberg.
Justin Jefferson should be the pick right after Cooper Kupp.
So where do you have that on your ADP?
I have Cooper Kupp 4, Justin Jefferson 6, and Dalvin Cook. Oh, no. Kupp 4, Jefferson 5, Dalvin Cook 6.
Wow.
So I do have Vikings back-to-back. And like I said in the short that I posted on YouTube, 2 Vikings are in the top 10, and that's not me being a homer. I think, dude, I think this Viking offense, it's going to be really exciting. I think they're going to push the envelope on how many points you really can get.
Now, most fantasy average draft positions, I would say within the top 20 picks are probably 75% running backs.
Yeah.
So you are putting a premium on wide receivers rather than not to say premium as you would take a wide receiver as a number 1 or the number 2 overall pick.
You know, I have 3 receivers in my top 7.
3 receivers in your top 7.
Yeah.
Who are those receivers? Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, and Justin Jefferson?
No. Kupp, Jefferson, Jamar Chase as of right now.
Wow. Young studs.
Yeah. What I end up I think Tyler Boyd takes a complete backseat this year. And just on another hot take, I think the Bengals are going to have 2 receivers in the top 10. I also have T. Higgins inside my top 10 wide receivers. Every year you see, 2 wide receivers on the same team inside the top 12, top 15. Why can't it be the Bengals?
Who are your top 3 running backs?
Top 3?
PPR.
101, Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler. I think Eckler, right now, it's very tough for me to keep Eckler there. I understand that the touchdowns are most likely going to regress. He's not going to have 20. But that's kind of where I'm trying not to let me being a homer put Dalvin Cook over Eckler.
I have a dynasty league that I do, and we do 2 keepers in that league, and you could trade draft picks, that kind of thing. It's not dynasty in the sense of it is a dynasty league, but we don't allow – there's certain dynasties that say you keep your whole roster. We don't allow that, but we allow 2 keepers, and then you could trade the draft picks. It's been the same players in the league since we were in 11th grade, so 15 years almost now.
Wow.
And my 2 keepers that I'm going to have is Christian McCaffrey and Austin Eckler.
Absolutely.
Because I kept Christian McCaffrey the year before, and Austin Eckler fell to me where my draft pick was. And I was shocked because we have a pretty good league where there's a lot of people who know what they're doing. And I'm not going to name names, but there's somebody who took Clyde Edwards-Helaire over Austin Eckler, and Austin Eckler slipped to me because of Clyde Edwards-Helaire's potential.
So
clearly, it was the bad pick.
I've got Edwards-Helaire, just because you mentioned him, 57. And I'm going to let you know, the more and more I hear about Rojo in camp, the further and further Edwards-Helaire is going to fall down on my board. Rojo, I think, has the best potential as an RB2 on their team to actually be running back one by week 1.
All right, well.
You don't see it, but.
I think that it's an hour and 8 minutes. We should probably cut this thing short.
Perfect.
That was a little bit of fantasy football talk from Joe, but he's got a lot to uncover and unfold. And Joe, you're going to be posting something closer, not now, but you have news for everybody, right? You're going to be posting something closer to draft time?
Yes. I have my list right now, constantly tinkering with it, constantly changing it. I'll post the entire list. I'll probably say second week in August.
Keep an eye out. Stay tuned.
It has to be second week because a lot of stuff happened in the third week where everyone actually starts drafting. And, me and Nick are busy August 19th.
I know somebody who's getting married.
Yeah.
I'm not really a big fan of him, but I have to go.
Yeah, he's a scumbag.
Guy's name's Joe. All right, guys. Yo, thank you so much for everybody that tuned in. It looks like we had a lot of people who were in and out throughout the process. We had some people who were commenting. Our content's only going to get better. And the reason why, I just want to reiterate, and I'll make another short of this. The reason why I want to use YouTube, rather than strictly go on Twitter now, is for the exposure that we get. And the exposure that we get is not to monetize because you make like 5 cents a view or something if you do finally monetize. Trust me, I'm not trying to buy one pair of diapers for my son. The reason why I want to monetize in the future is because I want to be able to do different things that I can't do on Twitter. I want to be able to do giveaways. I want to be able to do these crazy live chats where we get so many people involved. We could bring people on who are actually like, famous within the fantasy football world. And when we monetize and we can do that, do those giveaways and do shows from different places and not in our man caves, that makes it so much better. It's so much easier than Twitter. Twitter a lot gets lost in the shuffle. YouTube is so much easier for that. So once again, I appreciate everybody for liking, commenting, subscribing. You know the drill. If you're watching this back after, please let me know in the comment section. Let Joe know in the comment section of our hot takes what you agree with, what you disagree with. Share this to a friend, and we'll be back with you on Wednesday night with another stream.
Later, guys.